When the phone buzzed again. It was past midnight. Anna hesitated before glancing at the screen. You need to come home. Now. It was her neighbor, Leah. Confused, heart pounding, Anna grabbed her keys and rushed out, rain blurring her vision as she drove. The house was dark except for the bedroom window, lit and half closed. Something was wrong. She crept inside, hearing the soft murmur of laughter, a low moan, and her world began to tilt. She reached the door, and there they were, her fiancé Daniel, shirtless and tangled in bedsheets, with her best friend Jasmine. Frozen, Anna gasped. Jasmine turned, her eyes widening. Daniel swore. Anna, wait, he stammered. But the scene burned into her eyes. The betrayal sank like a knife into her ribs. Tears blurred her sight, but she didn't scream. She backed away slowly, the silence louder than a bomb. Her hands trembled. How could you? She whispered. Then she turned and ran. Wind. Anna ran until her legs gave out. She collapsed at a park bench, soaked and shaking. Her phone buzzed. Daniel's name lit the screen. Then Jasmine. Then again. She stared blankly at it until it fell from her hand into a puddle. The betrayal played in her head on repeat, like a broken film reel. The weight of it crushed her chest. I trusted you both, she whispered to the dark. All the memories, the brunches, the double dates, the late-night calls, now poisoned. Her body curled in on itself, as if to protect her heart from splintering further. A couple walked past, glanced, and kept walking. She was alone, screaming inside a silent world. A nearby street lamp flickered. She felt invisible. Useless. She wasn't ready to go home. She had no home now. Only questions and heartbreak. Hours passed. Dawn crept over the skyline as Anna sat stiffly on the cold bench, her clothes clinging like a second skin. Her tears had dried, but her chest still ached like a cracked rib. She slowly stood, retrieving her phone, cracked and waterlogged. She didn't know where to go. Her apartment? Her mother's? No. She couldn't face anyone. She opened her GPS and searched for a hotel. The city felt foreign now, each street haunted by shared laughter, each corner echoing memories of Daniel and Jasmine. She walked like a ghost, watching people rush to work, unaware that her life had just ended. You're okay, she whispered aloud. You're okay. But she wasn't. She was a raw wound in a city that didn't care. Her feet ached. Her heart ached worse. Wah. Anna checked into a small, windowless hotel room with shaking hands. The receptionist didn't ask questions. She collapsed on the stiff mattress, still in wet clothes, the ceiling fan above spinning with a dull whir. The silence in the room was deafening, oppressive. She finally pulled off her ring, her engagement ring, and stared at it. Her fingers had worn its imprint. How long had she been lying to herself? How many red flags had she excused in the name of love? With a scream muffled into a pillow, she wept until her chest heaved. Then she slept. A fitful, broken sleep filled with flashes, Daniel's smile, Jasmine's voice, their bodies entwined. She woke up screaming, sweat replacing the rain. This wasn't heartbreak. This was annihilation. 9. The morning after, Anna sat on the edge of the bed, numb. Her hair was tangled, her eyes bloodshot. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She washed her face slowly, hands trembling under the faucet. This is not the end, she whispered, as if trying to convince the stranger in the glass. The world outside didn't pause for heartbreak. Somewhere, Daniel was probably explaining things away. Jasmine. She couldn't even think the name without flinching. But Anna realized she couldn't crawl away and disappear. Not yet. First, they had to see what they'd broken. First, she had to make them look at the damage. There was power in that. She stood tall, pulled her shoulders back, and stepped out the door. This was only the beginning. Anna didn't speak to anyone for 2 days. On the third day, her mother called. She didn't answer, but the voicemail broke her. Anna, I don't know what's happened, but I feel it. Come home. The voice cracked with warmth, concern, and that unbearable motherly intuition. She took the next train to her childhood town, quiet, slow, safe. The familiar scent of lavender hit her as she stepped through her mother's front door. Her mother, gray-haired and gentle-eyed, opened her arms without a word. Anna fell into them, sobbing like a child. I can't breathe, she whispered. Her mother just held her tighter. Then we'll breathe together. In that moment the world didn't feel so dangerous. Anna wasn't okay, but she wasn't alone either. The ache lessened just slightly under the weight of love. Nay. That night, Anna sat cross-legged on her childhood bed, surrounded by stuffed animals and faded posters from another life. She stared at the ceiling, remembering a time when heartbreak meant a bad grade or a silly crush. Now, it was betrayal so deep, it shook her sense of self. Her mother knocked gently. I made tea, she said, holding 2 mugs. They sat together in silence, until Anna finally spoke. They broke me. Her mother didn't rush to respond. She simply placed a hand over Anna's and said, You are bent, not broken. You're still here, and that means something. The words didn't fix anything, but they sank into Anna's soul like warmth into cold bones. Maybe healing wouldn't be loud. Maybe it started in quiet moments like this. In the days that followed, Anna walked through her old neighborhood. Every step felt like peeling back layers of who she used to be. She passed the bakery she used to visit after school, the park where she'd once kissed Daniel for the first time, and the bookstore she and Jasmine used to haunt as teenagers. It was strange how the same places could carry both comfort and pain. She picked up a worn copy of Jane Eyre, her favorite from the bookstore shelf. The owner recognized her and offered a gentle smile. Still love a good heartbreak tale? He asked kindly. She smiled back, just slightly. Still do. It was the first time she felt her voice didn't crack saying his name in her mind. It was something. Small, but something. Undergans. D. Back at home, Anna found an old journal hidden in her desk drawer. Its cover was cracked, and inside were scribbled thoughts of a younger self, hopeful, wide-eyed, trusting. She flipped to a page dated years ago. Jasmine would never hurt me. She's the only one who really knows me. The words pierced her. But then she turned the page and found another. Sometimes, love blinds us. Maybe one day I'll know better. She traced the handwriting like a lifeline. It was as if her past self had whispered truth into her future. She picked up a pen and wrote, Today, I begin again. It wasn't closure, but it was a line drawn in ink. A promise. She would not be buried in their betrayal. She would reclaim her story. Now, on the 5th morning, Anna looked in the mirror again. Not to mourn, but to see. The woman staring back had cracks, yes, but she also had fire. She touched her cheek and exhaled. Jasmine may have stolen her trust. Daniel may have shattered her dreams. But they didn't destroy her spirit. She'd let them occupy enough of her mind. No more. She picked up her phone and blocked both numbers. Then she opened a new message thread. This one to herself. You're not theirs to define. She hit send. It felt silly. But also, right. Her healing wouldn't be linear. She'd grieve, rage, doubt. But she'd also rise. And today, she took a step forward. Not with confidence, but with courage. And that mattered more. And Anna returned to the city like a soldier stepping onto a battlefield. Nothing had changed. Same coffee shops, same faces, but everything felt different. Her heart pulsed harder with each familiar step. She passed their old apartment building and stopped. Her name was still on the buzzer. The audacity made her laugh, bitter and sharp. She snapped a photo and deleted it. Then, almost instinctively, she walked to her favorite cafe, the one she used to visit with Jasmine. Inside, whispers spread like wildfire. A friend of a friend had clearly talked. Two women glanced at her, then looked away, pretending not to care. She took a table by the window and sipped her coffee slowly. She would not shrink. Let them stare. She was broken, not invisible. And she had returned not to forgive, but to confront. Oh. Later that day, Anna received a message from Jasmine. Just one line. Can we talk? Her hands went cold. She stared at the screen for a full minute before typing. "Own hour, Washington Bridge, come alone." She needed answers, raw, ugly, truthful answers. Jasmine arrived early. She looked different, nervous, stripped of her usual charm. They stood in silence until Jasmine finally said, "I never meant to hurt you." Anna's jaw tightened. "But you did." Jasmine stepped forward, eyes pleading. "It was never planned. It just happened." Anna laughed, hollow and cold. "Love doesn't just happen with someone else's fiancé." Jasmine flinched. "I hated myself every second, not enough to stop." Anna turned her back. "I needed closure. I got it." And with that, she walked away, leaving Jasmine in the wind. War. Use a man. That night, Anna received a call from Daniel. Voicemail again. "Please, Anna. I can explain. I was confused. I didn't mean to lose you." She didn't return it. Instead, she visited a mutual friend's party, Jared's birthday. She wanted to reclaim spaces that used to be hers. But walking into the room was like walking into a courtroom. Eyes followed her. Some smiled awkwardly. Some didn't smile at all. Jared hugged her like nothing had happened. "Glad you came," he said. She nodded, though her throat felt tight. Daniel was in the corner, alone, holding a drink. Their eyes locked. His smile faltered. She looked right through him and turned to speak to someone else. She wasn't ready for conversation, but silence could still scream. No. Outside on the balcony, Anna leaned against the railing, trying to breathe. The city lights below blurred through her unshed tears. Jared joined her quietly. "I heard what happened," he said. "I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say." Anna appreciated the honesty. "Most people don't," she replied. Jared hesitated. "You didn't deserve it." She laughed quietly. "Thanks. That makes one of us." He looked at her seriously. "It doesn't make you weak to be hurt. It makes you human." She turned to him, heart unexpectedly thudding. Not attraction, something else. A reminder that not everyone would hurt her. Some people just stood beside you. And that mattered. She breathed deeply. The night air was cool and full of possibilities. Now. Anh gentlemen, design. How? Series A, Parks. When Anna finally left the party, she didn't feel small. She walked down the street alone, but she held her head high. She wasn't healed, but she was surviving. At a red light she paused, watching life buzz around her, couples laughing, cabs honking, neon signs blinking promises they'd never keep. Her phone vibrated. Another message from Daniel. "I miss you. Please." She deleted it without reading further. She raised her face to the night sky and let the cool air kiss her cheeks. For the first time since that night, she smiled, just barely. Pain hadn't won. Not yet. Not ever. She crossed the street as the light turned green, footsteps strong, shadows stretched behind her like a warrior's cape. Days passed. The initial fury had cooled, replaced by a quiet numbness that scared Anna more. She couldn't cry anymore, and that made her feel hollow. She went through the motions, eating, showering, existing, but everything felt mechanical. At night, sleep evaded her. She'd stare at the ceiling for hours, her thoughts looping on one image, Jasmine's eyes wide with guilt, Daniel's hand reaching for her. She hated that it still hurt. She hated that part of her wanted to forgive, just so it would stop hurting. One morning, she looked in the mirror and whispered, "I don't know who I am without them." The words echoed, and her reflection looked back with emptiness. The betrayal hadn't just shattered her heart. It had erased her identity. On the train, Anna started avoiding calls, even her mother's. She stopped replying to friends. The world became too loud, too sharp. The idea of pretending to be okay exhausted her. One evening, she sat curled up in the corner of her apartment, lights off, phone buzzing on the table like a ghost's heartbeat. She wanted to scream but couldn't find her voice. Instead, she whispered, "Please, just stop." The tears came then, unrelenting. Memories flooded in. Birthdays, road trips, stolen glances between Jasmine and Daniel that she'd dismissed. The truth had always been there, hiding in plain sight. The weight of what she had ignored crushed her. She wasn't just grieving betrayal, she was grieving her own blindness. And that kind of grief dug deepest. All day. The next day, Anna went for a walk. Not because she wanted to but because she feared she'd suffocate inside. She wandered aimlessly, the city noise fading to a low hum. At a bookstore window she paused. A sign read, "Healing isn't linear, take the next step." It felt like a dare. She stepped inside and wandered through the aisles, until her fingers brushed a poetry book. She flipped it open and landed on a single line. "Even broken things can bloom." Her throat caught. The simplicity of it cracked the wall she'd built. She bought the book. As she walked out, a soft drizzle began. She didn't run. Let the rain fall. For once, it felt like permission. To feel. To begin. Even if the beginning was messy. Oh. That night, Anna sat with the poetry book on her lap, pen in hand. She began to write, not about Daniel or Jasmine but about herself. Her dreams. Her rage. Her strength. Words spilled out like a dam breaking. She filled 3 pages before she paused. There, ink-stained and breathless, she felt the smallest flicker of self again. Not joy, not yet. But agency. Her pain had a voice, and it roared louder than silence. She closed the notebook and pressed it to her chest. She didn't know where this was going, but for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like a victim. She felt like a survivor in progress. And maybe that was enough for tonight. Morning light crept in through half-closed blinds. Anna opened her eyes slowly. She had dreamt of nothing, a relief after weeks of nightmares. She got out of bed and made herself breakfast. Toast. Coffee. All. Simple things. But they felt like rituals, like reclamation. She opened a window, letting in the breeze. It smelled like the world again. Her phone buzzed with a message from an old friend. "Heard what happened. I'm here if you want to talk." She didn't reply, but she smiled. A real one. Small, imperfect, but real. She wasn't fixed. Not even close. But she was beginning to rebuild. One breath, one choice, one ordinary moment at a time. And for now, that was enough. A week later, Anna received an unexpected email. The subject line read, "You deserve to know the truth." It was from an anonymous sender. Her stomach tightened as she opened it. Inside was a single sentence. Jasmine wasn't the first. Attached was a folder. Photos, screenshots, chat logs. Daniel with another woman. 2 years ago. Then another. Different face. Same timeline. A sickening realization spread through her like venom. Jasmine hadn't been an isolated betrayal. She'd been the last in a pattern. Anna sat frozen, the screen glowing coldly. All those times she'd felt something was wrong. She hadn't been crazy. She'd been right. She whispered aloud, "He's been cheating for years." Somehow, this truth hurt less and more at the same time. Jasmine had betrayed her. But Daniel, he'd destroyed her trust long before Jasmine ever touched it. Anna couldn't sit still. She paced the apartment like a cage animal. Her hands trembled. She called Jasmine. Voicemail. But wait. This time, she left one. You weren't the only one, she said quietly. He used us both. Her voice cracked. And I defended him. I defended you. God, I was so blind. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, breathing hard. It wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was humiliation. Rage. Clarity. Daniel had been a lie, and Jasmine, a symptom of a larger disease. She didn't know what justice looked like yet, but she knew one thing. She would no longer carry shame for someone else's sins. He didn't break her because she loved too deeply. He broke her because he never deserved her in the first place. Now I am. She went to see Leah, the neighbor who had first warned her that night. Leah opened the door surprised. Anna, are you okay? Anna didn't answer right away. Instead, she asked, Did you know? Leah hesitated, guilt flickering in her eyes. I suspected. I didn't want to believe it, but I heard things. Saw things. Daniel wasn't discreet. Anna felt the room tilt. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Leah looked pained. Because I thought maybe I was wrong. Or maybe you'd hate me for saying it. Anna's lips pressed into a thin line. You should have told me. Leah nodded slowly. You're right. I failed you. The words stung, but they were honest. Anna wasn't sure what forgiveness looked like anymore. But she knew what silence had cost her. Now again. Back home, Anna stared at a blank page in her journal. Then she wrote a single sentence. I refuse to carry their lies. She began drafting a blog post, raw, unfiltered, hers. No names. Just truth. About manipulation, betrayal, and the quiet power of surviving. She didn't write to expose. She wrote to reclaim. To say this happened, and I'm still standing. As she typed, tears slid down her cheeks, not of sorrow, but of release. Her voice had been buried beneath shame and silence. Unto and horror. Now, it rang clear. She posted it and closed the laptop. Whatever came next, she was ready. For judgment. For support. For healing. Because her story was no longer about them. It was about her. Hours later, Anna's phone buzzed. Hundreds of messages, comments, reactions. Strangers shared their stories. Friends apologized for not seeing. Women wrote, Thank you. You said what I couldn't. Anna sat in stunned silence, overwhelmed. Her pain had found purpose. Her truth had found resonance. She smiled, not out of joy but power. She hadn't exposed Daniel or Jasmine. She'd exposed the cycle. And maybe in doing so, cracked a door for someone else to walk through. Later that night, she looked in the mirror again. This time, she saw a woman no longer hiding. No longer asking for permission to hurt or heal. She touched her chest and whispered, You did it. Not just survived. She'd reclaimed her voice. Why, me. Daniel showed up at her door. No warning. No invitation. Just his presence, selfish and familiar. Anna opened the door halfway. He looked worn down, shaved face, crumpled shirt, eyes desperate. Can we talk? He asked. You already did, she said. To everyone but me. He stepped forward. I made a mistake. 100 mistakes. But I never stopped loving you. She laughed coldly. You don't get to call it love. He looked down. It wasn't about them. It was about me, my damage, my fear of commitment. Anna shook her head. You broke something sacred, and you knew you were doing it every time. A pause hung heavy between them. Then she said, You don't get to heal through me anymore. She shut the door, not in anger, but in clarity. Inside, Anna paced. Her hands trembled, but it wasn't fear. It was release. Her heart raced from the finality. She didn't owe him her softness. She didn't owe him anything. She looked around her apartment. Photos she hadn't taken down. A mug he once bought, his sweatshirt still folded in the closet. She began packing everything into a box. No drama. Just decision. With each item she whispered, "Not mine anymore." It wasn't anger driving her, it was sovereignty. She taped the box shut, wrote "Return to sender" in black marker, and set it by the door. She was done romanticizing pain. She would make room for better, even if she didn't know what better looked like yet. One time. Later she stood at the Riverwalk, the same spot where she and Daniel had first said "I love you." This time, she was alone. She held a letter in her hand. Not for him. For herself. A letter to the version of her that stayed too long. That forgave too quickly. That doubted her instincts. She read it aloud under the open sky. "You didn't fail. You loved deeply. That's not weakness. That's strength." She folded the paper, kissed it, and let it float down into the river. The current took it away, piece by piece. She inhaled. For the first time her lungs felt full. Her pain didn't vanish, but it no longer owned her. She had finally said goodbye, not to him, but to the version of herself who needed him. In that evening, she joined a local women's writing group, an open mic night she'd avoided for years. Her name was last on the list. When called, she walked to the mic with trembling fingers and a steady heart. "This piece is called 'The Day I Lost Everything and Found Myself.'" The room fell silent. She read about betrayal, survival, and awakening. Her voice didn't crack once. When she finished, no one clapped right away. Then, someone stood. Then, another. Applause rose like thunder. She smiled, not from ego but from release. Her words had landed. Her pain had found purpose. She stepped off the stage lighter. Not healed, but undeniably rising. Walking home under the stars, Anna felt the cool air settle against her skin. The streets glowed with quiet promise. She passed a florist and paused. She bought herself a single sunflower. Not as a symbol. Not for drama. Just because she could. Back at her apartment, she placed it in a glass jar by the window. The room looked different now. Not because of the flower, but because of her. She was different. She sat on the couch and wrote one final line in her journal. "I am not the ashes, I am the spark." She closed the book gently. In that moment, the silence felt like music. She wasn't waiting for closure anymore. She had created it, with grace, fire, and truth. Weeks passed. Life didn't explode with joy, but it softened. Anna began freelancing again, took up pottery, and stopped checking her phone for messages that never came. Her mornings were quiet, filled with tea and purpose. One afternoon, she ran into Jasmine. Unexpected. Awkward. They both froze. Jasmine looked tired. Older somehow. "Anna," she said. Anna nodded. No smile, no venom. Just acknowledgement. Jasmine stepped closer. "I'm sorry." Still. Anna held her gaze. "I know." There was no reconciliation. No hugging. Just a moment where two broken people stood in the truth. Then Anna turned and walked away. Not out of bitterness, but because she didn't need anything from that moment. Not apology, not closure. She had already given those things to herself. Later that week, Anna visited the pier she used to love, now her sanctuary. She brought her journal and coffee, watching the waves crash against the shore. The wind tangled her hair, but she didn't mind. She began to write again, not about loss, but about resilience. About how grief isn't a storm to outrun, but an ocean to cross. As she wrote, a small child ran past her laughing, his mother chasing behind. She smiled. Life was still moving, still happening all around her. She didn't need grand gestures to feel alive. Just this. Stillness, clarity, peace. She exhaled and whispered to herself, "This is what freedom feels like." It wasn't a loud, triumphant ending. It was quiet, grounded, and absolutely hers. One evening, she invited a few close friends over. Real ones. The ones who stayed. They ate takeout on the floor, laughed over old inside jokes, and passed around photos from college. At one point, Jared raised a toast. To rising from the rubble. You didn't just survive it, you lit the match. Anna smiled, touched. She looked around the room and realized she wasn't rebuilding her old life. She was building something new. Stronger. Wiser. Truer. Gangal. And not alone. The laughter that followed was light, but it wrapped around her ribs like armor. She wasn't waiting for happiness. She was creating it, scene by scene, with people who deserved to be in her frame. In the quiet of that night, after her friends had gone, Anna stepped out onto her balcony. The city sparkled below, chaotic, endless, beautiful. She leaned on the railing, exhaling slowly. Her story wasn't neat. It wasn't tied with a bow. But it was hers. And in the wreckage she had found pieces of herself worth protecting, worth loving. A song drifted from a nearby window. Something soft. Melancholy. Hopeful. She closed her eyes and let it wash over her. She thought of the woman she'd been. The one who stayed. The one who walked away. And the one standing here now. They were all her. Every version. Every scar. Every rise. And together, they had survived. The next morning, Anna stood in front of the mirror one last time. No breakdown. No affirmation. Just presence. She saw herself, truly. The woman who'd endured the unthinkable and still found beauty. She ran her fingers over her collarbone and whispered, "Thank you." Not to the world. Not to the past. But to herself. For holding on. For letting go. For daring to bloom again. Then with quiet confidence she opened the door, stepped into the sunlight, and walked down the street, not away from her story, but deeper into it. The final image wasn't a door slamming or a tear falling. It was a woman walking forward, undone and remade, not perfectly, but powerfully. And that, finally, was enough.